Welcome to Reddit Reads r/ProRevenge. Our first Reddit post is from Saltables 2020. Purple Porch Pirate. What's better than calling the cops on your sweet little old neighbor's heroin addict grandson for stealing your Amazon package? In July, my elderly neighbor had her grandson and pregnant girlfriend move in to help them out. She is a widowed lady in her 70s. Babbles a lot but sweet. I have a soft spot for her. Years ago, she cornered me as I was leaving to take my dog on a walk. My dog was unhappily pacing waiting for the walk while we listened to her stories. He peed on her during the story. Weird. Just a few days later, I am mowing my backyard, and the grandson walks past my house carrying an Amazon envelope. An hour later, sweet little old lady comes over with the envelope her grandson had. This was in my landscaping. Totally forgot I ordered my kids the movie Leap. What a shithole for this kid. See, I am a criminal defense attorney. Probably the only one this lady knows. If I call the cops, my neighbor will try to hire me. It will get weird. She is so sweet. I will be a witness. He is on probation, so he will sit in jail for a while. It's bad personally and professionally. This will totally make me look like a snitch to my own clients in that same jail who are thieves, addicts, and burglars. And it's not the biggest deal. So I filled up an Amazon box with purple rain powder that was ordered to my office. A dry dye that gets darker and spreads when it comes into contact with your sweat. That lasts a week on your skin. Think leaking pen times 50. Why I want to shame him and it won't come back on me. As not gonna call the cops for stealing my shit. He isn't gonna tell his grandma he stole from me. Yep, package was gone in 20 minutes. And if it makes a mess in her house, it's still cheaper for her than hiring a lawyer and paying her grandson's court costs and fines. I walk past the home, screams of anger at the pregnant girlfriend. This shit won't come off. It's all over my grandma's house. Priceless. The following day, I give him the head nod as he smokes a cigarette in a hoodie in July. He runs inside. Then I taught my kids to yell Smurf when we walk past. No snitching, just shame. This comment is from Penguin. Employing the kids to call him a Smurf was the icing. This comment is from Xafru. What's smurfing today? Hi, a neighbor. This comment is from DeJerome. I just looked up the purple rain stuff on Amazon. Looks legit. Did he just pour this stuff in an envelope? Ops should have mentioned the delivery method though. Our next Reddit post is from Urknit. I got you a souvenir. Yeah, I got you fired from the post office. Edit TLDR at end with some comments. Background. Sit back and enjoy a story about some revenge I achieved at the US Postal Service back in the 1990s that cost a bullying full-time carrier his union job. In summer of 1991, I found a summer job as a casual carrier for the USPS. The USPS has rules that things had to be delivered within certain time windows. They used to hire summer temps to cover for all the full-time carriers who mostly took their vacations in the summer. People could get fired if they took too long to do tasks. Carriers were both openly and secretly monitored and timed on tasks, and we had the first computerized time system I ever saw. They would be secretly followed a few times per year to be sure they were working hard the entire time they were outside the post office. We were supposed to walk over and punch in and out of tasks so that they could track productivity to the second. The post office building even had secret back hallways, passive sound monitoring, and hidden raised viewing areas where they could see the sorting floor. Unobserved cameras and microphones were hella expensive back then, so this was all done using tricky architecture and the eyes and ears of the postal inspectors. People walking a delivery route were expected to do it fast, and better routes went to faster carriers. Look at Newman on Seinfeld. Slow carriers got mercilessly hassled to be faster and were disciplined for slowness. Going postal due to overwork was not really a joke there, because people would flip out and murder their bosses. I hear it's worse now with GPS. Pre-internet, there used to be a huge volume of mail that got shuffled around the country every day. Quantities of mail that you would find hard to believe compared to what we see now. I was a broke college student home for the summer and was willing to work any hours they gave me, so the supervisors liked. I was also very friendly with most of the full-time FT carriers because I was a good worker and didn't rock the boat. Also, for other reasons that you will see below. I'm a fairly big guy, 65. I was also in my early 20s with long legs, so I could move fast carrying a lot of weight. Sorting mail back then was labor-intensive and took a lot of time to learn. I had a regular route that I would deliver in the afternoons that was sorted by a regular. I would usually do oddball delivery stuff in the mornings, help move heavy things around, do special deliveries, etc. I would also deliver for FT carriers that went on vacation, or whose 6 was on vacation. Side note, mail delivery is 6 per week, but FT carriers only work 5 days per week. The 6 is a FT carrier who did the 6th day for 5 routes. That way it worked out that everyone only worked 5 days per week. At the time, a lot of retail catalogs were mailed to houses. A lot of them. Some were substantially bigger than current magazines. We also delivered magazines, ads, packages, and samples. A lot of companies would mail free samples of products like laundry detergent, shampoo, and other liquids to be delivered to every house on the route. These were the bane of the carrier's existence because they were bulky and heavy. This slows you down and is physically taxing. Usually carriers would divide the very heavy stuff up and deliver it throughout the week. On to the revenge. I was assigned to do the 6 work for Dave, name changed for a few months. Picture a failed phys ed teacher in his 40s. Bad mustache, about 57, wore knockoff sunglasses like Magnum Piz, and had an opinion about everything. Dave learns he has me as his 6 and decides he will leave all of the heavy stuff for me. So once a week, I got confronted with the entire week's worth of heavy mail for this whole route. I confronted him about it, and he basically laughed and said there was nothing I could do about it. The other FT carriers didn't like Dave much, but I was a temp and he was there permanently, so I was encouraged to just suck it up. I went to our boss and escalated to our postmaster, but was told that he was FT and I was a temp, so I just had to deal with it. If the mail needed to be delivered that day to meet the deadline, I had to make it happen. You're making huge odds on this route. The postmaster's exact words were, just deliver every piece of mail for the route as fast as you can and don't worry about the time it takes or anything else. They did talk to Dave, and the most egregious stuff stopped. I mentioned earlier that everyone was always on the clock and tracked. In my first week, some of the nicer people took me aside at the beginning of the summer and made it clear to me that I was not to move quickly when delivering FT carriers' routes because it could make them look bad and cause trouble for them. So I was incentivized to move slowly and not make the FT people look bad. As a temp, I should always take longer than the FT carriers because 1, my job was limited, and the USPS did not really track temps closely. 2, I had 0 experience, so everything should take me longer. 3, this was a union shop. Side note, I am very pro-union and pro-labor, so this is not intended to knock unions, but the context is needed. I decided to wreck Dave's job since he was such a bullying little tool. I requisitioned 2 additional mail carrier bags. These are the over-the-shoulder satchels you see all the time. I was asked why, and I specifically told them it was to be able to carry all of the heavy items on Dave's route without having to keep going back to my Jeep to reload along the way. The postmaster personally approved it. After doing Dave's route 1 to 3 times per week, he called in sick a lot too. For a few weeks I knew it very well and was staying on top of the heavy stuff. Once I was comfortable with the route, I started running it. I would literally load up 3 mail bags for for each segment of the route and jog or run his entire route. 5 hours per day to walk. Dave's route took him about 4. I would finish it in 3 hours or less. This was probably accurate for him and had been on the route for several years. Every day, rain or shine, no matter how many magazines, samples, or packages were waiting, I would come back, pick up other work, and get that done. No one really noticed I was coming back so quickly and punching back out of delivering his route when I was only doing it a few times per week. The fun started when Dave took a 2-week vacation, and I handled his route 6 days per week. Since I was doing the work right, there was never a backlog of heavy items landing on me once per week. This made it even easier to jog or run his route, as I was back to using one mail bag, and fast walking. Jogging was enough to get it done quickly. I frequently got it done in under 3 hours and never took longer than about 3-5 hours. My personal best was under 2-5 hours. I got pulled aside by my supervisor and the postmaster after the first week. They asked me about my timekeeping practices, and I confirmed that I was doing things correctly. I would punch into his route on departure, keep the appropriate logs, and punch back in when I got back. The postmaster then asked me about Dave's route. I played completely dumb. He noted that I complained about the mail volume several weeks ago, and that I used to take 6-7 or more hours to get it delivered. I explained that I was spreading the heavy deliveries out over the whole week, and that had really made a difference. Then I dropped the bomb. I got very offended and told him I delivered every piece of mail for the route every day. He asked me if I was really delivering all the mail, and whether I was hiding or throwing away mail, a serious problem if true. I told him I was having trouble understanding why this route was budgeted for 5 hours to deliver when it clearly could be done much faster than that. I pointed out that it was a lot of dense multifamily housing, which means less walking. I told him lots of people on the route seemed surprised that I did not want a soda pop or to sit down and talk for a minute like Dave always did with them. Pure lies, all in my innocent Goshuantohopthus's voice. I told the postmaster that I was delivering all the mail as fast as I could and not worrying about anything else. I jogged the route again for the next 6 days and kept getting it done in much less time than Dave. Dave did not know about any of this. I told him I'd learned a lesson about how to treat your coworkers. He made a point of finding me on his first day back to ask how I enjoyed doing all the hard work for him while he was vacationing. He laughed at me and went back to sorting mail. He came back a few minutes later and said he got me a souvenir. Classic Dave. That was my last week at the USPS and I headed back to college. I kept in touch with some of the friends I'd made there, and one of them was very happy to tell me that Dave was fired about 2 months due to the massive discrepancy in how long it took me and him to deliver the route. The higher-ups audited his route and discovered that he actually was lollygagging, taking unauthorized breaks, and apparently having an affair with a woman on his route, all on the clock. I, on the other hand, was in great physical shape after all that running and had pockets full of cash for that semester. His regular chicks also got most of the heavy stuff dumped on her, so she didn't get into any trouble for her delivery times because she was swamped with heavy mail on her day. She actually bid for and got the route full-time when Dave was shown the door. I have more stories of my glorious summer at the USPS, but crushing Dave is one of the high points. Edit TLDR worked at USPS for a summer. Coworker who liked to pick on temps gets fired after I make it look like he's not doing his job right, and it turns out he really isn't doing his job right. Thanks for all the comments and awards. I didn't think a 30-year-old story about a summer job would be such a hit. For those saying that I could have handled this better, you were right. But this is ProRevenge, not follow the rulebook. Also, Dave was into all the temps, not just me. He just chose me as his special whipping boy for that summer, and I decided not to grin and bear it. This comment is from TennisNarkite1. I had a desk worker at my local USPS decide he didn't like that I was running a small business out of my home selling gaming figurines, and didn't like how I was labeling the packages. The first time I ever saw him behind the desk, he refused my packages because of the labeling, so I asked for a supervisor. The supervisor approved the labeling and told him to process my packages, around 20. He routed every one of them back to my home instead of sending them out. I walked back, and this location was literally a 3-minute walk from my home the next day, and there he was smirking at me. I asked for a supervisor again, and this dick said no supervisor was needed. Had already told me my packages were in regulation, so unless I did them the way he dictated, they would never go out. I argued for a moment, then, as his supervisor walked up behind him, let him run his mouth about how he was God so far as I was concerned, and what he said was gospel. The supervisor cleared his throat loudly, and I got to watch all the color drain from his face. He was sent to the back. The supervisor processed my packages himself, and I never saw the guy at the desk again. I was told that the guy had been reassigned to the back for poor attitude and behavior towards customers, and I only saw him once after that, sweating his ass off in the hot sorting area. This comment is from Melunders. Used to work at USPS. This shit still happened when I worked there like 2 years ago, and I'd imagine it's still happening today. This comment is from Naraim. The USPS has rules that things had to be delivered within certain time windows. People could get fired if they took too long to do tasks. Yeah, they still have those rules. My neighbor retired as a regional postmaster in 2019 and loved it when GPS came out because it made his job easier. We had a mail carrier from hell, MCFH, that would hold back some of your mail as revenge if you complained about him repeatedly misdelivering mail. I live at 123 W Street, and I would get mail for 123 El Ave repeatedly. Once or twice I could get, but not every other day after I pointed out the error. He started withholding their mail, and neighbor tore the local postmaster a new 120 priority mail that took 5 days. Well, his little revenge plot backfired when he did it to the postmaster neighbor after his wife complained about him refusing to deliver a certified letter. He didn't want to get out of the truck and walk up the driveway. I caught him on video not leaving the truck. Apparently, the MCFH didn't realize he was playing games with his boss's boss. We now have a new mail carrier, and the misdelivered mail has stopped, as well as having the carrier knock on the door when they have certified letters for us. IWFH. Now, a word from today's sponsor. Surfshark is an all-around VPN solution that can do everything from torrenting as well as streaming to browsing the dark web. Surfshark is one of the very best all-round VPN, terrific for Netflix, torrenting, confidential browsing, as well as staying safe on public Wi-Fi. Check out Surfshark today, link is in the description. Now back to the video. That was Reddit Reads r/ProRevenge. If you like this content, please subscribe and click the bell icon so you are notified of new uploads. We upload new videos every day. Also subscribe to our Patreon, as that will help us a lot. See you next time.